Hi, I'm Bob. Let's continue solving computer exercises for Chapter 6, Multiple Regression Analysis, Further Issues in the textbook, Introductory Econometrics, a Modern Approach, the 7th edition. For the 8th computer exercise, the estimated equation is as follows. The predicted price is $336,707 after we plug the values in the estimated equation. There are two ways to record the estimates in Stata. One is to use the underscore b followed by a square bracket and put the variable's name inside it. Another way is to use the matrix notation. EB is a 1×4 matrix. The numbers inside the bracket are for the row and column of the matrix. Using either way, we obtain the same answer for the house predicted price. We can obtain the 95% confidence interval for the second question directly using Stata's margins command. Putting all the evaluation values in the parentheses after the at option, we can find the predicted price along with its 95% confidence interval. It is from $322,042 to $351,372. We could also use the method in the textbook to find the confidence interval. We construct three new variables x1, x2, and x3, which are log size minus 10,000, square feet minus 2,300, and bedrooms minus 4, respectively. Then we regress the price on the three new variables. The intercept estimate is the predicted price. The 95% confidence interval is identical to that using the margins command. We compute the confidence interval for a particular predicted price in the third part. It is wider than the confidence interval for the average predicted price. We use equation 6.36 in the textbook to calculate the standard error of the particular estimate. We can find the standard error of the average estimate from the Stata result window, 7.374. The sigma square hat is also reported in the result window, 3580.045. Plugging them into the equation, we obtain the standard error of 60.29. Then we can construct the 95% confidence interval. It is from $218,546 to $454,868. It is a pretty wide range. The error variance, sigma squared, contributes much to this standard error. Let's do computer exercise number 9. The estimate equation is as follows. The calculus shows that after 15 years of experience, an additional year will reduce points per game. It makes sense because the marginal effect of experience on the game performance is diminishing. It will reach 0 and then become negative. Only 2 players with more than 15 years of experience are in the sample. In the third part, talented players tend to enter the league early without playing in college. The negative effect of college years on game performance only reflects the player's ability and potential, which are not controlled for in the model. The quadratic in age is unnecessary because both the level and quadratic of age become statistically insignificant. It implies that once experience and education are controlled for in the model, age has a negative effect on game performance. There's no significant turning point for the negative partial effect of age. In other words, the negative effect is not likely to become positive. In part 5, we regress the log wage on points, experience, square of experience, age, and college years. The estimated equation is as follows. In part 6, we do the F-test. In Stata, we type test, followed by the null hypothesis, age equals college equals 0. The F statistic with 2 restrictions and 263 degrees of freedom is 1.19. The p-value is 0.31. Age and college years are jointly insignificant at the 10% level. We fail to reject the null hypothesis that both of them are 0. It implies that once productivity and seniority are accounted for, years of age and college do not significantly affect the player's wage. Let's complete computer exercise 10. The estimated equation is as follows. The quadratic term is statistically significant at the 1% level with a t-statistic of -3.57 and a p-value of 0.000. Using calculus, we find that the optimal number of prenatal visits is 22.06. In the sample, 89 women had at least 22 prenatal visits. In the sample that is used in the regression model, 21 women had at least 22 visits. It is about 1.2% of the 1,764 observations in the regression. In Stata, we use if E sample to specify the sample used to estimate the model. It makes sense that prenatal visits have a diminishing effect on birth weight, and too many prenatal visits negatively affect birth weight. But the percentage of women who had so many visits is tiny in the sample. We add the models age and its quadratic term to the model. The model's age that maximizes birth weight is 30.83 years. Out of the 1,764 women used in the regression, 720 women are older than 30. The answer is no to the fifth question. The R-squared is 0.0256. The mother's age and the number of prenatal visits explain only 2.56% of the variation in the outcome variable. Let's do computer exercise number 11. The estimated equation is as follows. The demand for eco-labeled apples increases by 2.9 pounds if their own price decreases by $1 per pound, holding the regular apple's price fixed. The demand for eco-labeled apples increases by 3 pounds if the regular apple's price increases by $1 per pound, holding the eco-labeled apple's price fixed. The size are consistent with the demand law. They are individually statistically significant at the 1% level. The t-statistic for the eco-labeled apple price is minus 4.98 and the p-value is 0.000. The t-statistic for the regular apple price is 4.26. The p-value is 0.000. To find the fitted values of quantity, we use the predict command with the xb option. We give the fitted value the name eco-hat. Summarizing eco-hat, we find the range is from 0.855 to 2.087. In the sample, 248 quantities are 0. It is about 38% of the total 660 observations. The linear regression cannot fit the data well because many observations concentrate at 0. For the fourth part, the R-squared is 0.0364. The price variables together explain 3.6% of the variations in the outcome variable. There is room for improvement. In part 5, we add 4 variables to the model. The F-statistic for the joint significance is small, 0.65. The p-value is 0.6286. The 4 variables are jointly insignificant at any conventional level. We fail to reject the null hypothesis that they do not affect the quantity of eco-labeled apples once the own price and the cross price are accounted for. In part 6, the signs are as expected in the simple regressions, but the magnitudes drop, and they are not as significant as in the multiple regression. We can find the reason using the omitted variable formula 5.5 in the textbook. The correlation between the own price and the cross price is positive, 0.83. So delta 1 is positive. We know that beta 2 is positive. Therefore, beta 1 is upward biased. Since beta 1 is negative, the magnitude becomes smaller. Similarly, we can prove that beta 2 is downward biased. In other words, its magnitude also becomes smaller. For the last part, according to economic theory, the quantity demanded relates to the own price, the cross price, and the income. It seems that the quantity demanded for regular apples does not belong to the model. But when we run the regression, we find that the cross quantity is statistically significant, but the family income is not. If we drop the cross quantity, the family income is still insignificant. The R-squared decreases substantially. Instead, if we drop family income, the adjusted R-squared increases. In this case, the two price variables and the cross quantity variable fit the data the best. Let's do computer exercise 12. For the first part, we keep the observations of the one-person households. 99 people are 25 years old. In part 2, beta 2 measures the partial effect of age on the total net assets when beta 3 is 0. For the third part, the estimated equation is as follows. The turning point for the partial effect of age on net assets is 25.9 years old. After that, the partial effect of age on net assets becomes positive. Most people are older than 25 in the sample. So I'm not worried about the negative coefficient on age. In part 4, we rearrange the parameters and define theta 2. We construct a new variable x, and then regress net assets on income, age, and x. The coefficient on age is theta 2. We can read the standard error, the t-statistic, and the p-value from the data result window. The estimate of theta 2 is small, minus 0.044. The p-value is 0.893. It is very statistically insignificant. We could not reject the null hypothesis that the lowest net assets are at age 25. In part 5, the R-squared is unchanged, but the adjusted R-squared increases slightly due to one fewer regressor in the model. However, the interpretation of the coefficients is not as straightforward as in Part 2. I prefer the model in Part 2. In Part 6, we set income at 30 and graph the relationship between net assets and age. The assets increase with age at an increasing rate. We use margins and margins plot in Stata to draw the predictive values. For the last part, if the square of income is included in the model, it is not statistically significant at any reasonable level. I will not add it to the model. Let's complete computer exercise 13. The estimated equation is as follows. The log of school enrollment and the free lunch are individually statistically significant at the 5% level, but the log of expenditures per pupil is only significant at the 10% level against a two-sided alternative. Its p-value is 0.093. For Part 2, we use the predict command with the XB option to obtain the predicted values of the outcome variable. I name the fitted value mass4 hat. We can summarize the predicted variable and the actual variable and find the ranges. The range of the fitted values is from 42.41 to 92.67. The range of the actual data is from 0 to 100. For question 3, we first use the predict command with the residual option to obtain the residuals. Then we sort the residuals from the lowest to the highest. Last, we list the highest residual along with the building code of the school. The highest residual is 51.416 and the building code is 1141. The reason for such a large residual is that we do not control for all relevant factors in the model. The unobserved or unmeasured factors contribute to the residual. In Part 4, we add the quadratics of all explanatory variables to the model and do the F-test for the joint significance. The p-value is 0.6699, meaning that they are jointly insignificant at the 10% level. I will not leave the quadratic terms in the model. In the last part, we want to obtain the standardized or beta coefficients. We can do that by generating the standardized version or the z-score for each variable first. And then we replace the variables with their z-scores and run the regression without the constant. We can generate the standardized variables by subtracting the sample mean and then dividing it by the sample deviation. The estimated equation is as follows. In terms of standard deviation, lunch has the largest effect on math test performance. A 1 standard deviation increase in the percentage of students eligible for free lunch leads to a 0.6 standard deviations in the math pass rate. In Stata, we can use the beta option to obtain the beta coefficients without the hassle of generating the z-scores by hand. It gives the same answer. Finally, we reach the last computer exercise. We regress the log of salary on the benefits to salary ratio. The estimated equation is as follows. The t-statistic for testing the null hypothesis beta 1 equals 0 is minus 3.03, and the p-value is 0.002. We reject the null hypothesis at the 1% level against the two-sided alternative. The t-statistic for testing the null hypothesis beta 1 equals minus 1 is 2.99. The p-value for the one-sided test is 0.0015. We reject the null hypothesis at the 1% level against the one-sided alternative. In part 2, we define LBS as the log of BS. We use the summarize command to compare the range and the standard deviation of the two variables. The log term has a wider range than the level term. The log term also has a larger standard deviation than the level term. In part 3, we regress the log of salary on the log of the benefit to salary ratio. The R-squared drops compared to the model in part 1. In part 4, we run a multiple regression. The estimated equation is as follows. The coefficient on the benefit to salary ratio is not statistically significantly different from 0 with a p-value of 0.146. For part 5, more staff per 1,000 students means less heavy workloads. The salary decreases as a result, so it is negative. For a log-log model, it is the elasticity. 1% increase in staff lowers the average salary by 0.7%, holding other variables in the model fixed. In part 6, we add the quadratic term of lunch to the model, and we find that it is statistically significant at the 1% level. The turning point is 56.6. The range of lunch is from 0 to 100. The turning point is within the range. 419 observations have lunch values higher than the turning point. It is about 23% of the 1,848 observations in the model. For the last part, we can use data's margins command to predict the salary in the 3 cases. Holding other variables in their sample means, we find that the predicted salary is highest in the case of no poverty. Thank you very much for completing the computer exercises with me. See you soon. Thank you for watching this video and subscribing to my YouTube channel. See you next time.